The Boston Tea Party. Although the Stamp Act had been repealed, the bad feelings between the British and the American colonists continued to grow. The British wanted the Americans to pay more for the protection of the colonies and for royal rule, while the Americans were resistant to British taxes and rules and the limits that were being placed on their ability to rule themselves. The Townshend Act of 1767 was another parliamentary act that contributed to the growing tension between Britain and the colonies. This act allowed Parliament to issue taxes on imports like glass, lead, paint, and tea. Again, colonists responded with boycotts and protests. Tensions grew again in 1773 when Parliament passed the Tea Act. This allowed the British East India Tea Company to become the only tea company to sell tea in the American colonies. The colonists were furious at the idea of Parliament interfering with colonial business. Protests over the Tea Act spread throughout the colonies. In some cities, the tea ships from England were allowed to be unloaded, but the tea was left on the docks to rot. Ships carrying tea into ports in Pennsylvania and New York were not allowed to unload their cargo and were sent back to England. From late November to mid-December, 3 tea ships, the Dartmouth, the Beaver, and the Eleanor, arrived in Boston Harbor. The Sons of Liberty, led by patriot Samuel Adams, held meetings and tried to convince the governor of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, to refuse to allow the tea to be unloaded. Tension over the issue mounted in the city. On December 16th, the Sons of Liberty were told that the governor would not support their efforts to send the ships back to England. The Sons of Liberty decided to take matters into their own hands. After midnight, a group boarded the ships disguised as Mohawk Indians and destroyed the entire shipment of tea. 342 crates of tea were thrown into Boston Harbor. This event became known as the Boston Tea Party. Let's review what we have learned so far about the Boston Tea Party. Question 1. Which imports were taxed under the Townshend Act of 1767? A. Glass. B. Lead. C. Paint. Or D. All of the above? The correct answer is D. Glass, lead, and paint were taxed under the Townshend Act. Question 2. Who led the Sons of Liberty? A. Paul Revere. B. Samuel Adams. C. George Washington. D. Thomas Hutchinson. If you answered B, you know that Samuel Adams led the Sons of Liberty. Question 3. How many crates of tea were thrown into Boston Harbor during the Boston Tea Party? A. 115. B. 342. C. 550. Or D. 1,000? The correct answer is B. 342 crates of tea were thrown into the Boston Harbor.